now we'll move forward to our next topic, which is on raising the profile of women leaders in the management role. Guys, I feel personally that if a potential woman leader is provided with professional coaching and training, she can be shaped into a successful leader. And that gets me to our next panel, raising the profile of women leaders in management roles. So let's see what our esteemed speakers have to say on this topic. Please welcome Ms. Samyukta Ganesh Iyer, Vice President and Head of Marketing Kaya. Welcome, ma'am. We have with us Ms. Pooja Thakran, Senior Director, Corporate Communications and CSR, Honeywell India and HTS Global. I feel immense pleasure to welcome Ms. Ruchika Gupta, Chief Marketing Officer, Luminous Power Technologies, Ms. Sumeet Singh, Group CMO, Info Edge India Limited, Mr. Subhash Kamath, Chief Executive Officer, BBH India and Chairman, ASCI. Also, I would like to request Ms. Shalini Gupta, who is the brand specialist and industry speaker, to moderate this session, please. Over to you, ma'am.
So on behalf of the ASCI Women Disruptors 2022, I'm Shalini Gupta and I welcome you to this very, very interesting panel on the occasion of celebrating this Women's Month, that is March. So today we have a very, very exciting and interesting panel, and we are going to discuss some very interesting insights from their lives. And the topic that we are discussing is also something of great interest to all of you watching this. It is about raising the profile of the women leaders in management role. Now, yes, we have come a lot ahead and we have come this far. And with the changing times today and the request for women leaders in the world of legal, finance, as CXOs, CEOs, and even as prime ministers and presidents of states, I think we have come a long way. And in today's world, perhaps it's the right time to indulge and talk a lot more for a few of the leaders as this panel to take this ahead. So with that, I would like to open this discussion to the panel with some questions. And please feel free to add on your thoughts, whenever you would wish to. My first question goes to Samyukta. Samyukta, organizations today do feel that they would get a lot more open-minded when we have the women leaders at the helm of affairs. Yes, it does call for diversity, and they also bring in a different thinking and a different dimension. So do you think you would like to add on this, and what are your thoughts from your experience?
Yeah. Hi, Shalini. First off, thanks for having me. I think the entire the concept and everything itself, I think, is a great step towards breaking the glass ceiling. So the fact that we're all here together, having this shared experience, I think that itself makes for a very beautiful start. I think, yeah, definitely. I mean, having women on board definitely brings a lot of diversity. There is a lot of dimension in thinking and decision making as well, because it just becomes about that human experience of everyone bringing, their own authentic personal selves into the entire conversation. And I think also it helps a lot if, you have people, you can't do things alone, right? Like it takes a society to drive change. So if I were to pick my own example, I think I've always been very fortunate, both men and women bosses that I've had, who have always valued my opinion and encouraged me to speak my mind. In fact, if I were to go back in time when I was part of the global team of Vaseline, and we had like really senior people from across the globe because we were part of the global team. And I remember my first 2-3 meetings, I would just keep mum, though, you have like a whole bunch of things running through your head, but I just didn't have the courage to kind of talk. And I remember my line manager pulling me up and saying, I want you to go first. Whenever there is anything to be said in the meeting, I want you to first start talking. I think that just that little nudge, that when you get at the right time, and then I realized that as you are encouraged to talk, you're encouraged to find your voice, you slowly start getting better at it. But my whole point is that you might try breaking the glass ceiling alone. What you might end up making is a little hole in the ceiling, but it won't take too long before it kind of gets covered up all over again. So it needs an entire collective to kind of help each other to finally shatter it. And I think, Shalini, like you said, it's been a long time, right? The entire system has been so lopsided for so long that it needs a massive push, probably a little, larger than life kind of a push in order to create that fair share of opportunities, because it's been so lopsided that to actually achieve any sense of equality or equilibrium, it will need that much more effort for us to kind of get there. And I think, again, another example that I can think of was, my first job at Asian Paints, and I was sent to an upcountry location, the only women in the warehouse. And I had so many things against me: A, fresher, B, my gender. And then I was handling men with 20, 25 years of work experience with absolutely no clue what it takes to, drive dhanda or sales in that market, no language skills, nothing. And then that kind of just throws you in deep water and, forces you to kind of find that courage within yourself, to find ways and means to bond with the team, to get them to accept you, finally get them to respect you. I think those are the kind of experiences, the more we help, women in the organization, and the organization shows faith in you. I think that's very critical. Literally, when they task you with something impossible, it's honestly because they believe that, you can do it. And I think that belief is what kind of translates into your growth as well.
Absolutely. Very well said, Samyukta. And, it is all about your voice and your views, and which, kind of brings me to the next question, to somebody from the world of media. I think women have been a little ahead, perhaps, in that world of media and entertainment. I myself also, have been there. But I would like to hear it from Sumeet, if she could really share as to what are her views, when it comes to women sharing, or are they allowed to really share their views and have a voice in the world of media?
So thanks, Shalini. Well, I've never really been in the world of media, but because I represent a consumer internet company and not a media company. But I would like to share my perspectives, on the topic. I think just building on what Samyukta actually said is that I think women need to break the shackle as well. She very, very rightly actually said it, that a lot of times we don't want to speak up, right? She gave a beautiful example where she was nudged, by her managers and by her seniors, to actually start taking that initiative and speaking up. So I kind of feel that in a lot of companies and a lot of sectors, once women reach the right state, if you are in a management profile, or if you are handling a profile where the spokesperson can be that person, I don't think it's too much of the company not letting women leaders really speak to media. If you are handling a function or a department where you can be the external face of the company, we see a lot of women leaders today representing their companies and express views on behalf of their companies. I think the larger question is, are enough women really getting there? And as women are kind of ready to, we are conditioned in a very, very different manner. I mean, a lot of things that we might feel is aggressive is not necessarily in the man's world, in the corporate world, taken as aggressive, right? So rather than taking it as arguments, are we taking it as discussions? Are we really speaking up? I think a lot of those things also matter, because it's really about taking that leap. So while companies do definitely need to give us opportunity, and I see now when we talk to a lot of companies, we talk to a lot of leaders, we're all kind of also been in different companies doing different roles. A lot of companies actually don't look at it as men and women, right? You want a culture. Women don't want to reach that position because of gender. You want to because of performance and meritocracy, and I think you value companies giving equal opportunities irrespective of gender based on meritocracy. Right? And a lot of the new age companies are doing that. So I think it's also that whole companies need to be very supportive of women when they're moving from the middle to the senior. A woman has a lot of responsibilities. She's kind of got into a family you've got children maybe who are at a certain age, in school, etc. Therefore, I think that is where companies need to kind of get in and also do a lot to coach women, because we're just scared maybe of facing the camera or of speaking. So can coaching be kind of, given? Can you not, because one wrong comment you made, because comments are made wrong by even men, right? There are CEOs also who sometimes make a blunder when they're kind of talking to media. So I think we should also stop judging ourselves and patting ourselves as women on the back as well, because we do that. And I think culturally we need to make that change in ourselves as well. And as Samyukta said, the moment you start doing it, the company's trusting you and therefore sending you to a very, you are, a female fresher, but and keeping the trust that you can do it. So I think it's both folds. Companies, of course, give you that opportunities, but we as women also need to speak up. Companies give us that coaching and also lay that trust in us. So that's my opinion really on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also need to reach out, right? Either we speak out or we kind of reach out to the right people, maybe to seniors who are, women, or in another kind of a role, perhaps in a very different organization. Yeah, I do agree, absolutely. And I so
Can
like
I-
this point to, yeah,
Sorry,
Ruchika, please.
sorry, just if I may
Please.
just add on here, I just wanted to share a couple of very simple examples that I have observed on this question. So I had a lady in my team who went on a maternity leave. And just before she was going on a maternity leave is when the promotions, etc., were due and to be announced and stuff like that. And she had done a fabulous job, in the previous year and things like that. And she got promoted. So when I handed her, when I called her up and I told her that, this is your promotion and everything, her first reaction was, "You're still giving it to me." And it was her reaction. It was nothing to do with any discussion that anybody had with her. And I was genuinely surprised, because I did ask her this question that, why did you think you wouldn't get it? Your work has been exemplary and everything. You deserve it in every which way possible. She said, no, but the organization could have thought that I'm not going to be productive for 6 months, at a stretch. And then also when I come back, maybe my productivity may or may not match my previous levels as a perception. They may have thought it. I said, but are you telling me that is what is going to happen, or are you telling me, or that you won't be able to take on enhanced responsibilities once you're back? She says, no, none of that is true. I said, then why would you stop yourself from believing that you deserve what you're getting rather than anybody doing you a favor? And that actually is a for me, it's a very good insight into the way women think. It's got nothing to do with what organizations are doing or not doing. There was nothing from the organization which didn't encourage her, but she herself, because of the conditioning. And then she of course went on to give me examples of how some people somewhere else that she knew of, their promotions were held back, giving this logic, that, oh, you're not even going to be here, and what's the point of enhancing your role, and everything like that. And that's where I think organizations play a role. Don't pre-assume. Have that conversation with the lady in question. Yes, things would emerge. Yes, and those of us who've gone through the whole rigor of having a baby, it is a full-on job and responsibility on its own as well. So yes, things can change, but don't assume. Don't just take it for granted that, oh my God, she's already, she's not going to be available. She's on a different path altogether. That's one example where an organization, I feel, has a huge role to play. I also want to share another example in a similar scenario where there was a sensitization workshop going on for men, on this whole diversity piece. And what they were doing was that they were just throwing up scenarios, and you were expected to react. Just talk about how you think it is, and So there was one of the scenarios was of two people who were due at a certain level. Both had very good performances, but the organizational constraint was that they could only give increments, and good increments to one person. And the only difference between the two was gender, right? And that was it. there was no other thing. So both have been good performers. Both are, this thing and everything. Some of the men in the room, and I was a observer, so I can tell you that some of the men instinctively said, give it to the man, because he'll be the primary earner of his family. Whereas the woman's earning would be the second earning income to the family. So if you want to do good, you must give it to the man. Okay. Now, this is something which you can debate about it on a ethical or moral.
We can actually go on and on.
Yeah, exactly, right.
But then that is the society that we are in. I think it is,
exactly.
We can't ignore
Absolutely.
that. Very, very good point, Ruchika. It's a fantastic, example, I think.
Again, the same thing I would just like to say is that this is where organizations need to, because, it's not enough to have that one mandatory POSH committee, one, one policy, one, humko itna percentage diversity hire karna hai, and set it as a benchmark or target for HR, those kind of things. These are, I honestly think that they end up harming in some ways. Of course, they're needed. I wouldn't say that they're not needed, but they kind of also stop at a certain level. The rest of it is something which, as Sumeet is saying, as a woman, if you try telling me that you're going to give me a role because I'm diversity, you're likely to, kind of lose me then and there, right? I need it on my own merit, and I need it on that rather than anything else. So,
absolutely. So well said. Thanks for sharing it.
Add to that, there are, enough women in very senior roles who actually, by their male colleagues within a large organization, are actually given this over drinks in the evening. Yeah, you are here because we needed diversity. Organization might not be obviously doing it. It might be doing it on merit, something which is very, very common, So
okay.
Has brought up that one. And women don't want that, right? You don't want something because of diversity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, Sumit, you also touched upon this entire point of, playing the diverse role, where you could be in a certain age in your life, when you become a mom, you have to also, manage your family and yet manage your career and your office. So I think opportunity needs to be given to the women, to really hone their capability and their leadership skills. I would like to hear from Pooja, what would she add here on this context?
Thanks, Shalini, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. Yeah, this topic is very dear to me, and I've also had with my 3 decades of experience, I've seen the whole space evolve so much in the past, how it used to be for us to what we are today. So while I know that there was a time and in our careers where we knew that whenever there were women who were going out and taking some long leaves because of maternity or family pressures or getting married and all, those opportunities that were lying ahead of them, they were taken away. Like I have seen it in one of the best organizations also. I've seen people returning from maternity would not get the kind of promotions or kind of roles. But I think most of that, it's especially from the companies that we come from, or largely the big companies, we don't see that anymore. At least that is what I have witnessed in my last 1.5 decade. Those kind of policies, or maybe practices are no more there. We do feel that women are acknowledged, that they bring something meritorious to the table. It's a lot more about being a top performer, being a great performer. You're given opportunities, not just by, by virtue of your status, by being a married woman or having a children and all. I think those are not there largely in the big organizations and shouldn't be there. However, I always read one statement that I totally believe in. It is by Jack Welch. He said, own your destiny or somebody else will. And that one statement just stick to me so much. And I think that has been the principle or the philosophy how I have personally led my life, that whenever there are opportunities that come your way, we don't have to wait for us to be 100% ready for that role. And especially, I've seen it in women that they would wait, whether I'm really 100% ready for this role, only then I will plunge. Am I really, really out going, and I'm really going to be able to do it? Do I have everything set for myself? Only then I will take that role. I think we need to just take the role, even if we are 60% ready. I think we just need to take that step and take that role, and, make sure that you are capping onto that opportunity. And that's my biggest my learning, that take that role, and as and when you start taking up that role and working on it, you should spend time learning, and you should spend time upskilling yourself for that role. I think that's one. The second thing is, I heard the panelists like Sumeet and Ruchika both brought up this whole point about women are very self-doubting, and I've had colleagues, I have had team members, they're always self-doubting. And
we are our own enemies, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and not just women. I think I have seen that, that it's about, so much of self-doubt they have. You need constant reassurance. Like, I have had team members who would come to me and ask me, Pooja, am I doing well? Do you think I'm doing the right way? Are you satisfied with me? I've never had even one single male colleague or male team member ever come to me and say, Pooja, do you think I'm doing a great job? Do you think I need to do something better? Never ever, because they are so self-assured and they're so self-confident that they never ask any question. But I have seen some of the best of girls, best of team members taking that position. I think that's one thing where I think we all need to have that whole self-assurance and inculcate that, yes, we are doing the right job. Yes, we are making very good strides. We are contributing. I think that will go a long way. And I'm a big believer that, the other thing, I remember when I was a child, my mother was into writing articles and all. And at that time, there used to be this nice women magazines and all, like Grahe Shobha and all of those.
Yeah.
And I remember my mother once wrote an article, women are the enemies of women. It's not, I mean, we talk about women, but they are the ones who actually sometimes you feel that they're just really disrupting and not really helping, supporting and all. I think while we ask a lot of our male colleagues to support, we expect, I think it's also important that women should support women as well. So that's something that I feel we need to be a community of women who are supporting. We have to be a community of women who are mentoring, really pushing people, pushing the girls to really move ahead, reassuring them that you're doing a great job. I think that's really, really important. That community has to be there. I have never seen a male colleague pulling the other one down. There may be cases, but I mean, it is really rampant. We have to really come and drive that sort of camaraderie and, make sure that we reassure other girls because they really need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think I personally like the whole Sheryl Sandberg's, lean in. I would urge everyone.
Yes, that's right.
How you can nurture each other, all about lean in. I don't know if you're aware, I'm sure all of you are.
Absolutely. So, that was one book I would always give it to one of my team members.
I would, absolutely.
So I always used to give it. I still have a bunch in my house. Anytime I see, a bright girl, I would always tell her, please read it. Yeah.
And I love your future shaper hashtag, Pooja. That's exactly what we are talking about. Yeah. And, it is so true that we self-doubt ourselves, we don't communicate, and, we are unsure of ourselves. But I would like to ask, Subhash, that there is talent. Yes, there is sincere women talent all around us. And I think what requires is proper coaching, proper honing of that talent. So, Subhash, being a part of, ASCI and the industry body, what's your take on it, Subhash?
I have a slightly different point of view, and perhaps being the sole male voice, I might get beaten up by all the ladies here. I disagree. At least I come from an industry where women are absolutely treated as equals. Okay. Because my boss is a woman, my head of HR is a woman. I've worked with many women colleagues at senior levels. In advertising,
I think the world of advertising, Subhash, has been kind of a front runner.
So I'm coming from there.
Yeah.
Having said that, when I first started BBH in India, I remember in the first 3 years, even though my creative partner was a woman, right? And out of the initial 15, 20 people that we hired, 80% women. Because at that time, we weren't conscious. We just wanted to get the best talent. Let's get a damn good art director. Let's get a damn good executive, whatever. And based on the biodatas that came in, we hired the best after many rounds of interviews. However, one of the things that I started noticing as the agency was growing is that the culture in the office was a little bit like a locker room culture. Boys will be boys, the same, camaraderie and language and, jokes and stuff like that. And in a couple of exit interviews, one of the women actually said this to me that, it's a lovely place, great people. Sometimes it's just be uncomfortable being a woman here because there's so many men cracking those jokes and stuff like that, which is when it was like a cold shower on us, right? That while we have not created it with any bias, right? But there is a bias, unconscious bias. So we started after that instructing every headhunter for every one male biodata for the same profile, you have to give me 2 biodatas, women biodatas. Then let the interview process choose the best possible candidate. Today, we are 50-50 in our organization, not just at junior levels, but even at senior levels. Out of the 4 vice presidents or 5 vice presidents report to me, 3 are women. Out of the 4 planning heads, 3 are women. So we've, and so that is one part. So I come from a background, unlike some of my more illustrious colleagues on this, where women are equal, extremely talented, in many cases done a much better job. And I found, for example, there are creative sensibilities and sensitivities. I remember when I was brought in as client services director in Bombay office, I had a team, all girls team on ASCI music systems. And I had an all boys team on Lakme. This team was frustrated because they had no interest in the technology behind music systems. These boys were frustrated because they couldn't distinguish crimson from mauve. And that's what the lipsticks and all were being discussed. So there was frustration all around. I just switched the teams. And I realized how much of happiness the girls were so happy to manage Lakme, right? So sometimes you just need to cast the right people on the right end and they'll flush, correct? When it comes to training, however, right, I believe in actually behaving in an equal manner versus, I don't think women require special training at senior leadership levels. So for example, if there is a leadership coaching or a CEO coaching that I want to do, everybody should get that same coaching, men and women, right? I think some of the examples that I heard today is people who perhaps the younger or a middle age who are mid-level management who are struggling with baby, household support, at the same time job, and those kind of things. But the people who come into senior management and CEO levels have gone past that. And they are as kick-ass on a board at ASCI, and I have some very senior women on the council, and they are as powerful as anybody else. So if I were to do coaching for my top level in the agency, I would give equal coaching on what is leadership all about, how to create a great atmosphere in the company, how to embrace and be more inclusive in your working styles, and so on and so forth, right? And not just skills or presentation skills. I mean, I heard that women are underconfident while presenting. I've conducted 23 presentation workshops at different levels. Trust me, men are equally nervous, and the ability to stand in front of people and present is a skill that even men don't have. 1 out of 10 people are good presenters. The other need to be trained. Other 9 need to be trained, whether you're a man or woman, right? Underconfidence, self-doubt is equally a male problem. And that is part of my mentoring process, even with the guys. Come, I'll be with you. You present it. Why are you doubting? Why are you doubting your own performance? This is something that even men go through. They may not show it sometimes, But when you work closely with people, they have equally the same level of nervousness, self-doubt. Am I doing well? Will I get my promotion? You know, that whole sense of nervousness is there equally amongst men. So my experience is that beyond the point, and I completely understand where you're coming from, that successful women need to be celebrated so as to inspire more women to become successful. I completely get that, right? But I also feel that we've done a bit too much of it. There are a bit too many women empowerment awards and things going on all the time, right? At CEO levels, for example, I don't think you should have a separate women CEO award. I think at CEO, they should be competing with the best. They should stand out and be celebrated amongst the best, right? It's not like tennis, right? Where you need a separate women's and a separate men's tournament, right? Or athletics. I think when it comes, I think women are as powerful. And when you've reached that level where you want to be a CEO, I think meritocracy should be the absolute reason to choose somebody, and not necessarily and not gender, right? So when it comes to training, leadership training, that's where I would definitely. But when it comes to counseling, if you find that one of your female colleagues, because of the new baby, is struggling, or I'll give you another example, comes from a very conservative background, has been married into a very conservative family, is very career conscious, wants to be in a career, but her father-in-law and all tell, beta ye sab kyun karti ho tum? Zarurat nahi hai tumhe karne ki. So she is conflicted with family pressures as well as her career aspirations, right? So in those kind of things, perhaps some level of counseling and mentoring helps. And like, Pooja also mentioned, I think this thing about people going on maternity leave and therefore losing out on promotion, I think that time has passed. I think now today 6 months is not only 6 months, you're also now making sure that there is a creche, there's other support that you can help provide for, childcare and things like that. I think going forward, all of this will become very much of a norm, And like I said, again, my views are perhaps colored from the industry that I come in. But I feel, it's not just to speak equality. I think you've got to practice and behave equality.
Absolutely. I think
answer your question?
Yeah. And we need more like you, Subhash, which is why you're in this panel, to kind of encourage.
I'm not some exception. I think that's the way it is.
No, I think exactly about, practicing. It's as simple as that, just to get more female, CVs for the same profile. These things are just some normal practices that one has to, bring in. And very small steps, right? So that is definitely required. And we really do want, more people like you around us. So another...
sorry, one small, may I add just one small point?
Yeah.
The other thing I've also noticed is that it's a question of personal choice. If a woman herself decides that she doesn't want the humdrum of corporate life, she rather do her life and look after her child herself, I think that's a personal choice. I think here we are talking about where an organization, like my wife did that. My wife said, no, Iyer is going to bring up my baby. I'm going to do it. So she gave up a very promising journalistic career to bring up a kid, right? And I didn't want her to give up a job because she was fantastic at her job. I said, don't give it up, right? But I think what we're talking about is our organizations and the policies that organizations create. Are they restricting that growth? Or is it time to open up? I agree with Pooja. I think that time has gone. I think it's now already opened up. And now it's up to the woman to grab hold of those opportunities and fight in an equal world.
Yes, absolutely. And which is why I also, like your point that coaching is required across levels. It has nothing to do with, seniority.
Yeah, I just want to add a point here, Shalini, if you allow me to.
Yeah.
Two things. One is that, when you look at the entire ecosystem in which when we call out the gender equality gap and all of that, the whole ecosystem needs to be reviewed. When you look at from a primary education point of view, today we are at a stage where from a gender point of view, it's equal, equal number of girls and boys go into primary school. That percentage starts to decline as you go up in the value chain. So, when it secondary education, the percentage drops. Expert level, the percentage drops further. I mean, how many to enter the job market, the percentage is even lower. Then you talk about, mid-level, the percentage is lower, and leadership level, of course, the percentage is way too low. So that entire ecosystem also, if you see, the evolution of how the ecosystem has evolved, women have actually been, that whole pipeline keeps on leaking, and because of various reasons. While we all come from a very privileged backgrounds, and we have owned up our careers, and we've got very good partners or support system at home, that we could actually lead very good careers, but that may not be the case for everyone. I have still seen in a majority of households where the expectation would be that the women will compromise on their careers while men will continue. I mean, it is very nice to say, but why should that consciousness only come in a woman, that she has to take care of her children, and why not the other way around? That whole evolution also needs to change. That mindset, that expectation from women has to change. It should not be like incumbent upon them that they have to compromise with their careers. That should not be the case. Now, the second point that I want to make is about feeling that women are very the confidence is something which is a general problem. No, it is not. It is not a general problem. Men are far more confident than women, and there are studies after studies that have shown that. There is a Harvard Review study which was published in 2022, which talks about, if you ask a woman to rate, the average rating that a woman would give herself would be 46. Whereas a man, the average rating they would give themselves is 61. So that's a clear, outline that men always think themselves as more confident, and they always project themselves as confident. Whereas it's always about the women who are always, self-doubting. So I think these are the 2 points that I really want to counter, that it's still not an equal world. We are going to take 170 years to be, bridge that gender gap. And there are a lot of consistent efforts and things that we need to do to be able to bridge that gap. And it should not be just about the corporates. I believe the whole ecosystem, the whole societal, has to change. We need to promote more STEM education in girls, so their gender pay gaps can also be addressed. So there is a lot of concerted effort that one has to do to be able to reach that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only point is that it has, started, and we just need to, carry this forward ahead. Yeah, so very, very interesting points, Pooja.
Can I add one? Do I have time to add
Yes,
small
yes.
points? So about 2-3 years ago, I was at this New York. There was a conference called the 0%, the 3% conference, right, where a lot of these issues are also discussed. And there was a panel discussion there, very interesting one, where there's a new trend in America, in the US, where it's men staying at home to look after the kids while the woman's career has gone through the roof.
Yeah.
And there were lots of interviews with these men, right? And they also have their own insecurities about that. They have their own insecurities because they were both working, and the women's career went like that. And therefore, then for the sake of children and home, the men had to stay back and look after them. And there were interviews with them, there was videos with them, etc. So I'm saying, look, the world is changing, right? And while I agree with Pooja that certain level of extra focus needs to be given in certain areas, don't discount the fact that at some stage men are also feeling diffident about it. I mean, like you said, men are confident, but at 61, it's not 80, right? 46 or 61 bola aapne na. It's not that men are 100 and women are 41. It's not like that. I mean, insecurity is there everywhere. In fact, now with this whole work from home and pandemic situation, I'm finding a lot of mental health issues across the youngsters, and we are having to counsel them and things like that. They're not unable to cope with life. So yeah, I just feel I think we are in a good place and moving towards a much stronger society. How well it will emerge 100 years later, we'll see. But I think we are.
But the journey has started. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think
the consciousness has started.
Yeah, consciousness has now come in. It has probably trickled in, but it has come in. Yes.
But we have a long way to go, Shalini.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. And there are. I have seen, women HR heads behave extremely different when they're at the helm of their roles, and while they were junior earlier. But, I just wanted to also I in fact like this point that Subhash mentioned that, lack of confidence, nervousness, these are normal human problems. It has nothing to do with, men or women. I think that I would agree, which is where I think the HR policies need to play a bigger role. That's where they need to streamline the whole inclusive, aspect. And I think that's the question that I have to Ruchika next, though she's been, she's already cited some great examples. That, do you think that the HR has any, through their policies, have any big contribution, especially in, different sectors, perhaps in the manufacturing, perhaps in the production, maybe in the blue collar, jobs, even they would aspire to be, rising up the ladder. Your thoughts on that, Ruchika?
I mean, I come from a manufacturing based organization, right? So I've had the exposure to meet some of the women who are working in those setups. For example, I had a visit to our national warehouse, and there was a team of 4 girls. So I also lead one of the women initiative, women support groups in the organization. So I just wanted to meet them and ask them about how are they. And this location is about 45 minutes from a main city. So it's not the easiest of a metro location, and which is what ends up happening in a lot of these manufacturing oriented roles, because most of these plants and factories or warehouses are located in areas which are not locationally as conducive this thing. Now all these 4 ladies who were there were single, and one of the things that came up very automatically for them was that, ma'am, I can do this role now, आगे का तो पता नहीं. And there the underlying assumption was that मुझे ही move करना पड़ेगा, बंदा तो move करके यहाँ आएगा नहीं. As in when I get into a stage like that, right? So that is one. So and this is one example that I'm giving you from my own personal observation, but I'm sure all of us who worked in any kind of a manufacturing setup have experienced this across anything, because most of the factories are not located in a urban metro kind of a setup. They're all located for various reasons, mostly tax related ones, in kind of far and beyond kind of locations, right? Those do not make for very conducive setups, even for men. It's not just for women, even for men. A lot of men who are located at these areas also then end up leaving their families, for children education, for wives profession, for any of these kind of reasons. Their families are not necessarily living with them. Now, in those kind of scenarios, HR policies can actually play a much better, bigger role, than anything else that we observe, because again, like I said, posh and maternity leave or period leave or all of these policies are, for me, table stakes. These are just must-haves. These are no longer an optional have, kind of things. HR policies, what they do is, to an organization, they nudge a behavior, but a cultural change is not dependent on a policy, right? So a cultural change of treating a woman like, Subhash gave a very good example. I've gone through it myself. I've gone and complained about a smoking club decision-making culture, and I had gone up to my CEO and said that, I'm sorry, you cannot go on a smoking break and come back and tell me कि वो तो मेरा discussion हो गया, अब इसको तुम implement कर दो जाके. Those kind of things, those are cultural things. There can't be a policy about it. This thing. However, when it comes to something like this, for example, setting up a shuttle service from a metro to these kind of places is something that a policy can do, an organization can do, right? Which allows more and more women to be a part of these setups, while staying in the family context and everything. And that is something that an organization can and should do. So yes, policies will, you can use the policies the right way to influence, because, okay, so what ends up happening, and if I was to just hypothetically continue the example, there are only 4 women in this entire setup of the warehouse where there were 150 people working, okay, and 4 women. Now for these 4 women to be set up as a thing of, okay, unko housing bhi dena chahiye, unko shuttle bhi dena chahiye, unko safety wise unki shift duties bhi, wo karna chahiye, and this and that and all. it can very easily be interpreted as you're pampering them, right? By the rest of the
differential
146
treatment.
Exactly.
That's right.
The 146 will not be wrong in saying that why you only doing it for them versus this. That's where the HR policies come in and play a role, that offer it to everybody. You can enter the policy keeping the interest of a group in mind, but don't use it to differentiate, right? And that's something that I feel is a little bit of a cost, or some it requires a little bit of more mature thinking than normal. Because the easy way out is just to formulate that one policy and kind of okay, हमने उनको support कर दिया, but you will end up causing discriminated feelings, and it won't be long term sustainable on its own. So I do feel that yes, there is a role that HR policies can play, totally, but it cannot be just the the table stakes policies. It has to be more evolved and more thought through.
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps a little more thinking into the entire thing, will kind of help them avoid the future conflict, if any. Great. I think it was wonderful, hearing all of you. As we finish, I would just like each one of you to perhaps share that one thing that you think can, make a difference today towards, much more diverse situation in our organizations. Anybody can start, perhaps Samyukta?
Yeah.
I'll start.
So, hi.
Okay.
So I think it was a very engaging discussion. I think all of us have gone into our own little thought bubbles with various insights that were thrown our way. Like it's just taken all of us back into, I think, various realms that have happened. I think one big thing that needs to happen. I completely agree with, Subhash when he said that, there is insecurity in all of us as human beings. It's not about men, women. There are confidence issues with everyone. But I think the big difference that I think Ruchika, Pooja, and Sumeet were highlighting, and I think which we all resonate with, I think is the fact that there have been so many centuries and centuries of this lopsidedness that, I agree, Subhash, that there is a collective consciousness happening. The organizations and, kudos to leaders like you who have, started this journey long ago, even before any of this happened. But the issue is that it's happened for so long that the scales are so tilted that, like the New York Times, if you see the, there's an article about the Fortune 500 CEO list. And there's actually a point made that there are as many number of women with male CEOs named John in the list, and that's just 8.1% of the total list. So that's literally how bad it is. Okay, so it means that there is so much work and there is so much effort that will be required. If it means, Sumit, I agree with you when you said that you want to be there because of your meritocracy, you want to be there because of your performance. But I think it's okay. The only way to kind of achieve that equilibrium is when organizations have to go like all out and say, it's okay, we will create extra opportunities at every given point in time, because that's the only way the scales will tip, because it's so like this right now. I think that is kind of required for that equilibrium. And then, like Ruchika and Pooja made a point of, it's about the society at large, it's about conditioning, and it's not just corporate. And that's the only way, I think, as a human race, we can kind of move forward.
Yeah, thank you, Samyukta.
Yeah.
Over to Sumeet. Yeah.
So the one thing I'd say is something that we touched upon and some of us very passionate about is what Sheryl Sandberg says, right? So as women leaders, I think it's very, very important to lean in, right? Because it gives you and it gives you a lot of inspiration and courage, when you see from your own gender people at a particular stature at a leadership level, because you feel that I can go there as well. And I'm sure this is true for men, but there are just so many examples and role models for men. Exactly what you said, Samyukta, that it's just so lopsided, the scale, right? So I think it's very important for women in senior leadership roles to lean in. And I think that whole journey from middle to senior, because there's a huge dropout there, you know, and one of the panelists was also talking about it. I think Pooja touched upon it, right? As every level we go up, there is a dropout. And I think that's in the corporate world, that's the stage where it's very important for more women to kind of pass over. And I think as women leaders, believing in leaning in, you know, and staying there, and creating those support groups within our organizations, big or small, I think is something that we women should do, so that more women can kind of come up. Besides, of course, all the other things that organizations have to do. But I think lean in is what I would like to leave the panel with.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumeet. Yeah, Pooja, over to you.
So for me, it is about just having that confidence and making sure that you are really in control of your own life. That is what stands out. I think we have to really go after the opportunities. We don't have to always be 100% ready to take on the opportunities. We have to just go out and grab the opportunities that are shown in front of us. For me, that is really important, I think. And the second one is that we need to just watch the backs of other women. Make sure that you are really watching over their backs, making sure that you are making them more confident and giving them the reassurance that you're doing a great job. I think these two things are extremely important. And I do a lot of mentoring and coaching myself to a lot of women, both internally and externally. I think we all need to do. We've been in these very good roles. I think I feel that this is the only way we can give back to this whole cause, by just making sure that we are going out and giving that mentoring and that assurance to other women. Make sure that you are really helping them and supporting them in the back. Just we are taking care of you. So these are the key things.
Sure, fantastic. Yeah, Subhash.
Okay. For me, it's one line: be the change that you want to see. Okay. Yes, there are 175 million years and centuries of conditioning and social conditioning, etc. As an individual, I can only do that in my sphere of influence. Hopefully, that will become a ripple effect for everyone. It's not just the way I run my organization. It's the way I treat my wife. It's the way I look after my daughter and give her the wings to fly. And I've done that. She's an independent woman. My mother was shocked. Why is your daughter wanting to stay on her own? I said, she's 29, she wants to. And I think that's great. She's chosen the path that she wants to do. Of course, as a father, I'd be worried for her safety and all, but I will never ever come in the way of her wanting to do stuff on their own. So be the change that you want to see. And just want to pick up on one of the things I think one of you all said about role models. A lot of women are my role models too. And I want to be a role model to women as well. And I don't want to take away from the sisterhood that happens, that women have to support each other and be there for each other. But again, if you open your mind, then you stop seeing them as women or men. You start seeing them as role models. And if I want to set an example, I want to set an example equally for the women in my company as well as for the men. Hopefully, I'm trying to do that. So be the change that you want to see.
Wonderful. Yeah. Ruchika, over to you.
So I have to say that this forum is one of the only forums that I have attended, and any kind of a women-oriented topic where the most used phrase has not come up so far. And I was actually keeping a track of whether or not it comes up, which is all about work-life balance. It is, and for me, the one big thing, and like the others are pointing out as well, I think at a paid forward is a part of who we should aspire for. It at least it is a huge part of who I am as a person. And I've, like Subhash said, I've had mentors who were women, I've had mentors who were men. I don't discriminate in who I choose to mentor or counsel, this thing. However, I would still say that there is a difference, and unfortunately that difference, so again, anecdotally speaking, we had this forum, one of Women's Day, one of these things, 75 women in a room, a moderator standing there talking to you, says, okay, let's talk about what is the biggest struggle in your life today. Okay, biggest struggle in your life. That's it. There was no context or anything like that. Out of those 75 women, 73 women wrote work-life balance or some version of it. Managing this thing. And the only other two who did not was, one was me, and that's why I remember the numbers, because I mean, I had reached a position in life where I feel that, I control my life, and the life, this thing is there. So I'm privileged enough not to have that as a concern. But eventually when we got into detail, and the other person had actually, she was single and she was having a very good time. So work-life balance was not a concern, that entered into her zone. But I'm just simply saying that the whole thing about women leaders, and I would say leaders, Subhash, to add to your point, maybe it's about leaders and not women leaders, but exemplify work-life balance in the way you conduct yourself at workplace. Please set the right examples that you can reach leadership levels without having to, lose any other perspective in life, because that is one big concern that comes in the way of growth of a lot of women, right? Why do we say that they drop out? Because they've had children, because they feel they can't balance the two, right? They end up feeling that they can't balance the responsibilities that are being put on them, and all those millions of years of responsibilities, expectations are not going to change in a, I mean, you have a child, I am a single, child house, but if my child falls ill, nobody even turns around and asks my husband why he's not on leave. Even as egalitarian and as evolved and as everything as I consider, it is my job to make sure that my child is comfortable, and I may push him, and he's reached a point, thankfully we've now cracked the code for us, but I know it's a rare scenario to be in. So please don't glorify slogging for 20 hours as the only way to reach leadership positions, because that comes in the way of growth, or just in terms of even setting aspirations for a lot of women. So,
absolutely. And I think it's about being the change. And when we are all leaders in our way, I think we can definitely create and actually, illustrate what we think and, and what we want the world around to be. So wonderful hearing all of you. And I can only say that, continue to disrupt all that you're doing around, and, and create a change and transform. And thank you everybody for being a part of this session. Have a wonderful month and enjoy yourselves. Have a safe life. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
You.
Nice meeting all of you.
Same here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your insightful thoughts. That was really a wonderful discussion.